Hey guys, so I wanted to walk you through the steps of what a designer would do or what you could do when you are discovering trying to create your own branding. So I am sharing my screen with you, and also I've got the little pop-up in the corner so you can see me as I'm going through this. So this is a client who actually has agreed to this process. Her name is Mia Voss. She is currently Mia on the Go, and we are in the process of rebranding her. She is a travel influencer among other categories, but we are shifting her brand over toward her name, Mia Voss. And we have a lot of reasons for doing that, which I could go into in another video, but I just wanted to show you the process of beginning to discover a logo and a brand look and feel. So what you can see here is I've gone through, and where the company name is going to be Mia Voss. So I've gone through and chosen a handful of fonts that are going to be the basis of her branding and her logo. So I've looked at some serif fonts, some handwritten fonts, and then some sans serif fonts. So a lot of the process here comes down to who her ideal customer is, and also how these looks represent who she is, her energy, her vibrance, what she has to offer, what her services are. Your logo should really represent your energy, but also be something that your ideal audience is going to connect with. So initially, I'm not thinking any of these really fit the bill. This one possibly, because it's not as classic as these, and there's nothing about her that's ordinary. Her energy is very vibrant and different and fun. So although this sort of sits in that fun-er category, I think this one, being that it's a little more squat, is a little more playful. So I am going to play with that. So what I ended up doing is I have a whole bunch of pages here. I'm using InDesign. I tend to start with InDesign for this type of thing, and then once I'm actually developing the real logo part of it, I jump into Illustrator, export those ideas, and then bring them back into this document, because in the end, this will be the presentation that I create a PDF out of, upload to Google Slides, and then share that with her. So we've already gone through a brand discovery with Mia. She's answered all my little questions and done all my little tools and games about figuring out who her ideal customer is. So we have a good handle on that as well. So I've taken this first Mia Voss here and thrown it over here. So now what I'll do is play with this in a couple different ways. And I'm not going to look at colors or anything like that. I think when you're working with a new client, the worst thing you could do would be present a whole bunch of logo directions in a bunch of different colors, because you're going to overwhelm them. I like to take baby steps with these different options. So one of the ideas I was having first was, do we stack this? Does it come in two different levels here? Does it, let's see, do we play with these? Is it more, there's lots of things that we can do. I think the key is my suggestion rather, is to come up with your draft ideas quickly and then move on. So if you have an idea that you like, try it out. If it's really giving you a hard time, I truly believe it's not the right idea. I've seen a lot of designers try and force an idea, and that never goes well. Okay, so there's a concept here that I like. I don't like that structure, and let's see, maybe it's just not the right, I don't like that. I don't like the S. Let me try this. It's tough when you have the two S's because you don't want to look like this gives you a different type of S, which is nice, and it gives you the option to choose, what is this font? This is Lakeside. This is for personal use. We would need to purchase this if she chooses this direction. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you have a client who has a really small budget, they may not have the budget to purchase a rights managed font. There are plenty of resources that you can use, like Google Fonts, or if you happen to have an Adobe subscription, you can use Adobe fonts. I buy a lot of fonts off of Envato. DA Font is another really great resource for free fonts. But yeah, for this particular one, unfortunately, it would be a rights managed font. So that means you would have to buy a license for it, and it would only be able to be used for this particular company. So something to be aware of. So I've got a few ideas here. I would look at these and think, okay, well, what's the most successful? I like this one quite a bit. I think there's two ideas here, and then maybe this could work. This one's not working, and I don't like the look of that. This one could work. I feel like it's missing a little something, like maybe it's an icon or something that we'll develop later. And then the last thing I want to play with this idea is two different things here. One would be, let me see, I don't like it. So because her name is Mia, which is M-I-A, I don't like the idea of all caps because somebody could read that and think M-I-A, meaning missing in action, which is not a good thing for a travel influencer or anyone for that matter. Yeah, I'm just not digging that. So maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's Mia is the scripty fun part, and Voss is the serif part. So that might work. And then for something like this, I'm going to try and line up the top of the V with the A. Oops. And like I said, this is all, really it's digital sketching more than anything else. Okay, so that looks pretty good. What I might also look at is a second version of this with all caps, and in that case we would need to make the box bigger so it doesn't fall. I love the idea of the VOSS all caps. I like that a lot. Are there any other? No. So from here, what I might do, okay, so this one we're going to delete because I don't like that as much. This one I like the concept, I don't like the size, so maybe that ends up being something else, or maybe it tucks in here. So scale is something to play with when you are developing a logo for somebody's brand. One of the other things that I'll probably do when I jump into Illustrator is play with this this curve of the M, or maybe this curve of the M, to sort of tuck in. Actually, I can probably do it pretty quickly here. The whole point here is to move fast, right? Time is money for a designer. If any of you are just starting out in your business, I'm sure you're realizing that pretty quickly, that you cannot spend the time that you used to spend in school on these ideas. And naturally, sketching with a sketchbook is a great way to start. And then moving on to these digital comps is another great way. So Illustrator would really help me out here. I am, for the purposes of this video, not going to jump into it, but we get the basic idea, right? So it's a kind of a nice mock-up. Again, I'm not loving this curve, so I would go back into Illustrator and adjust that. The other thing to start thinking about is what a tagline would be. So we could say, let's just leave well enough alone and call it tagline. Oh, and one thing is I always have my kerning set to optical. Optical kerning versus metric kerning. Metric is for numbers, optical is for letters. So make sure when you are typesetting in InDesign or any other program, Adobe program, you are setting your kerning properly. So if we were to do a tagline here, we might do something like that. And this is just how I'll keep developing different ideas, right? This one I don't like as much. There might be still an idea there. And then I will make that smaller and then play with what font we're choosing here. So I'm going to go back up to the top because these are already fonts that I feel fit her brand regardless of which direction we end up going in. But that one is Helvetica New, extended, I believe. Yeah. So I like that quite a bit. I might also look at it being all caps, and depending on what the word or phrase we end up going with may be, because it might end up being something like travel influencer, always on the go, whatever her tagline ends up being. I'd like it to be a little bit longer. So I'll play with a longer placeholder. So I think all of this could possibly work. Another thing to think about is capitalization, and does that fit the brand as well? You know, if your brand tone is very informal and fun and lighthearted, you might want to stay all lowercase. So that's something to think about. Then what was I just thinking? Oh, okay. I want to play with this in that Helvetica font that we're using, the extended, the thin extended, this one. Just to see how it plays with the Mia. So I like that quite a bit. I think I might save that for its own idea though. So I'm gonna pull this and I'll grab this whole thing actually. Go down to a new spread where I can have a fresh brain and a new idea. So I don't want to necessarily have the old idea influencing where I go with the new one. So if we did something like this initially, I would say let's go with what am I looking for? Too heavy. Don't like the way this is set up. So that's an interesting way to go. I feel like that's probably too stiff for her. But you know, the other thing to think about too is once you mock these up and put them into some usage, whether that be